the US and its allies are in a race to tackle the problem with North Korea before the reclusive state achieves its nuclear ambitions.
The greatest immediate threat to the United States and to the world is the threat posed by the rogue regime in North Korea.
엄지들 안녕하십니까?
The latest one sent a missile higher than ever before, putting the continental United States in striking range.
Escalating tension with Washington and its allies in the region, of course.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
In Japan, high alert, sirens blaring.
All options are on the table.
This is going to be a different kind of episode. Usually I pull a stamp from a box and explore it, but after episode 6, when I came across a number of North Korean soccer stamps, somebody sent me this, an assortment of North Korean propaganda stamps, and I just have to do an episode on it. Oh, but first, given the UN embargo, North Korean stamps aren't too easy to come by and potentially illegal to own, depending on what country you're in. China, however, is not too strict on enforcing the embargo, and North Korea actually markets its stamps for the Chinese stamp collector, but apparently they're not that popular. So we should be good for this episode. Now, several of these images can be disturbing, and they're no way endorsed by me, but I do see the value of trying to interpret the messages that North Korea is sending us. After all, these are messages. To the people of North Korea, of course, but also to anybody else outside the country that gets to see the stamps. I mean, think about it. The North Korean government doesn't really have too many global platforms to communicate to the outside world. So stamps, in this case, are playing a role in filling that void. Now, several of the images are actually shrunken down posters that have been placed on stamps for propaganda purposes. The concept of a propaganda poster is pretty old school, especially being used by government as a prime means of communication to its people. If you were to walk through the streets of North Korea today, you would see plenty of posters that look just like these stamps, displaying messages of strength and pride in the country, the ability to crush an outside threat, or even just excitement behind cultivating a new crop. It's propaganda in which the purpose is to promote a very particular point of view. Now, if you notice the design and style of these stamps or posters, they're very similar to the 1940s or 1950s style posters that were also bright and colorful illustrations. They were also used to promote ideas or causes or even products. And that's because North Korea has cut itself off from the rest of the world since the 1950s during the Korean War. So it's no surprise that fashion, style, or even the way of thinking hasn't changed much since then. And these posters or stamps are very indicative of that. You really don't have to put a lot of effort towards figuring out what these stamps are about. They're very clear and simple to understand. And it comes down to just a handful of themes, namely military might and capability, a unified Korea, which we will discuss in a minute, North Korean pride and patriotism, the strong working class, intellectual power, infrastructure, and a strong distrust and hatred towards the United States. Really, these themes are evident in all these stamps, and I'm sure there are a few more, but what makes the messaging so effective is their use of symbolism. There's a lot of symbols in these stamps. Now, I think these stamps span the last 40 or 50 years, some of them very, very recent. So let's take a look at all the symbols and imagery that they are using to communicate their messages. Starting with the image of a single Korea. Every time this country draws itself on a stamp, it is the entire Korean peninsula, not just the north. And that's because North Korea truly believes in a unified Korea, that the South doesn't really exist as a country. It's also evident in their name, which is DPR Korea, or Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It's not North Korea, as South Korea names itself. It's a single Korea. It's the entire peninsula. You can see it on several of these stamps. The standoff between North and South Korea is at the 38th parallel. It's a stale mark of a war that technically never ended between the Soviet and Chinese-backed North Korea against the US-backed South Korea. It's also important to note that the Japanese occupied Korea from 1910 all the way through to the end of the Second World War, which is important to know because North Korea has a strong hatred of the Japanese and the United States. Some of these stamps are horrific, very graphically portraying an American or Japanese soldier being beaten or killed. And as tensions are increasing between the United States and North Korea, we're seeing more and more aggressive stamps pointing towards the United States' destruction and defeat. Here's a stamp from 2005 which portrays the USS Pueblo, which was an American spy ship that was captured by North Korea. Now, one of the US soldiers was killed and the rest tortured before being released. This is a graveyard portraying that death and pain. And the captured boat is now a tourist attraction. Now, keeping to the theme of military might, there's a strong presence of weapons, lots and lots of guns present on the stamps. Either a soldier holding guns or guns being used for sport. It's almost as if they're reminding everyone that they have a firm grasp of their nation, or they're just armed and ready to use the weapons when needed. Which brings me to missiles. Recently, with the increased testing of long-range missiles, they've been issuing stamps celebrating each of these launches, one of which is very clearly laying out that they can reach the United States. Notice that the United States is in the color gray, as well as any time a US soldier is present on one of these stamps, they're in gray as well, so that is being associated with a dark presence or evil. This symbol keeps showing up all the time. This is the hammer, sickle and brush. It's representing the workers, the farmers and the intellects. The brush is a calligraphy brush that you use to scribe with. It's also a statue in the capital city of Pyongyang, known as the Monument of the Founding Party. But you see this symbol in almost all of these stamps. Next up is the atomic symbol, which shows up in a number of stamps here. It's pointing out the advancement of North Korea's nuclear or atomic program. Next up we have the 5-point star, which shows up in a couple different forms, including on the North Korean flag. This is a classic communist symbol that is said to represent the 5 fingers of the worker's hand. Staying on the North Korean flag, we notice the colors of red, white and blue. And those are national colors symbolizing revolutionary traditions through the red, purity, strength and dignity through the white, and of course sovereignty, peace and friendship with the blue. Oh, and this torch on a tower, this is of major importance. It's known as the Doochie Tower. It shows up on a lot of these stamps, and it's significant because it symbolizes self-reliance, or the ideology that you can survive on your own. It's why North Korea has cut itself off from the rest of the world. Now this one might be one of my favorites. Electric tower pylons. They make it into a lot of these stamps, and I always associate them as maybe ruining a good view, but for North Koreans they are clearly very important. It's almost as if they're saying, hey, we have electricity and we're proud of it. The sad thing is though, if you look at a nighttime satellite image of North Korea, you see a very different picture. Mountains are very important to North Korea, and I have a couple of stamps portraying Kim Jong-il standing on Mount Pictou, which is the tallest volcano mountain on the peninsula. It's actually claimed to be Kim Jong-il's birthplace. The flying horse. It's known as a Cholima and is actually also a statue in Pyongyang. President Kim Il-sung asked the country to rebuild the nation at the speed of the Cholima, and so the mythical creature became a representation of the country. It's actually the national animal of North Korea, so they have a mythical creature as its national animal. A couple of stamps have this national emblem on it, which is a collection of all the symbols we've just gone over, including the electricity pylon, the mountains, the 5-point star, and so on. So in conclusion, what are the messages that I take here? Well, North Korea believes in a unified Korea, a single peninsula, and they strongly believe in their form of rule and government, putting a large emphasis on the worker, the farmer, and the intellect. They want us to believe that they have the power to unify Korea through force, and that they're more than capable of taking on any foreign threat. They also want us to believe that the country is prosperous and successful, and this can be seen through the images of happy and healthy farmers and workers and families, the powerful armed forces, the momentum of their industry and construction. They even have electricity. I mean, this is incredible. This is a massive propaganda campaign pushing this facade or these ideas out to their own people and the rest of the world. Now, apparently North Koreans are avid stamp collectors, but I'm not sure what the typical North Korean stamp album looks like. It's probably just a lot of these types of stamps. Next episode will be a fun subject, I promise, and I may need to go back in time for it. Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any new episodes, and follow me on social media. Thanks for watching, see you next time.